Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The sun had just begun to dip below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the city. The busy streets of downtown bustled with people rushing to get home, the buzz of traffic filling the air. Among the crowd, a confident figure strolled against the tide. Her long blonde hair flowed in gentle waves down her back, contrasting against the dark evening suits of those around her. Her tall, slender form moved with an effortless grace, hips swaying subtly with each step. She wore a simple, form-fitting black dress, hugging her curves and showcasing her hourglass figure. Black heels added a few extra inches to her already considerable height, and with each click against the pavement, heads turned. This was Christie, and she owned the sidewalk. The wind rustled her hair as she passed a group of construction workers, enjoying the last few moments of daylight before their shift ended. They paused mid-conversation, their eyes tracking her movement. She offered a subtle smile, knowing the effect she had, before turning her attention back to the path ahead. As she neared a busy intersection, the honk of a car horn startled her, followed by a shout. "Hey, watch it!" Startled, she spun around to see a red-faced man leaning out of his car window. His angry expression quickly transformed as he took in her appearance, a smirk spreading across his face. "Oops, sorry, princess. Didn't see you there." Christie's cheeks flushed, but she maintained her composure, straightening her posture. "No harm done," she replied coolly, meeting his gaze before continuing on her way. As she made her way through the bustling streets, Christie's thoughts drifted to the reaction she often received from strangers. It had been a year since she had transitioned, and although she had fully embraced her new identity, she was acutely aware that not everyone shared her open-minded attitude. She had endured confused looks, awkward questions, and even outright hostility. Yet, she refused to let these reactions define her. Her mind wandered to the coming weeks, knowing that the hardest part of her transition was yet to come, facing her parents. They had been less than understanding when she had first shared her true self with them, and she hadn't seen them since. But she was determined to stand tall and show them the confident woman she had become. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air as Christie stepped into the bustling bar. It was packed with the post-work crowd, the hum of conversation and lively music creating a vibrant atmosphere. She smoothed her dress and made her way through the sea of people, her heart fluttering with anticipation. "Hey, stranger!" A familiar voice cut through the din, and she spotted her friend Leah waving excitedly from a small table in the corner. Leah's curly brown hair framed her lively green eyes, and her beaming smile mirrored Christie's own as they approached each other. "It's been too long!" Leah exclaimed, jumping up to envelop Christie in a warm hug. "I know, I'm sorry. It's been crazy," Christie replied, breathing in the familiar scent of her friend's perfume. They sat down, and Leah's gaze drifted over Christie's feminine form. "Damn, girl, you're looking fierce," she remarked, a note of admiration in her voice. Christie felt a swell of pride. "Thanks. It's been a journey, but I'm finally feeling like myself." Leah's expression softened. "I can't even imagine how hard it's been, but you're killing it." Christie's smile faltered slightly as she remembered the purpose of their meeting. "Listen, Leah, there's something I need to talk to you about." Leah's brow furrowed, her playful demeanor shifting to one of concern. "What's up? You know I'm here for you, no matter what." Christie took a steadying breath, the lively atmosphere of the bar suddenly feeling suffocating. "It's my parents. I haven't told them about my transition yet. I know I should have, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it." Leah's eyes widened, and she reached across the table, squeezing Christie's hand gently. That's heavy, babe. I can't even begin to understand how you must be feeling. I know, Christie sighed, her voice cracking slightly. I mean, they're my parents. They should be the first people I turn to, but... She trailed off, shaking her head. But they're old-fashioned, Leah finished for her, her tone sympathetic. It's okay, you don't have to explain. I get it. Christie bit her lip, her eyes flicking around the bar as if searching for a way to voice her fears. What if they don't accept me? What if they disown me or something? Leah's grip on Christie's hand tightened reassuringly. Then they don't deserve you. Plain and simple. Family isn't always about blood, Christie. It's about the people who love and accept you for who you are. Christie offered a weak smile, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know, it's just scary, you know? Of course it is, Leah soothed. But you don't have to do this alone. I'm here for you, and so are a lot of other people. We've got your back, no matter what your parents say. Christie felt a wave of relief wash over her, a sense of solidarity forming a barrier against her fears. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Leah grinned, her confidence returning. Now, enough of the heavy stuff. Let's get another drink and celebrate the fabulous woman you are. As Christie allowed herself to be led to the bar, her worries momentarily eased, but she knew the hardest part was yet to come. The next day, Christie stood in front of the large oak doors, her heart pounding in her chest. She smoothed her hair and straightened her dress, taking a steadying breath. With a trembling hand, she raised her knuckles to rap sharply on the wooden surface. The sound of approaching footsteps drew closer, and her throat constricted. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with a kind face. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in Christie's appearance, but she quickly schooled her features into a warm smile. Why, hello, dear, she said, her voice soft and welcoming. How can I help you? Hi, Christie managed, her voice cracking. I'm here to see my parents. The woman's brows furrowed slightly, a hint of confusion clouding her warm expression. Your parents? Yes, Christie continued, her confidence growing as she met the woman's gaze. I'm their daughter. Recognition dawned in the woman's eyes, and her smile faltered. Oh, I see. Well, come in, dear. They're in the living room. Christie stepped into the familiar foyer, her heart hammering in her chest. She followed the woman down the hallway, her eyes taking in the changes to the house since her last visit. Family photos adorned the walls, and she searched for any sign of herself among them, but found none. Chris? The soft, questioning voice of her mother made Christie's breath catch in her throat. Her mother appeared in the hallway, her eyes widening in shock as she took in the tall, blonde-haired woman standing before her. Mom! Christie breathed, searching her mother's face for any sign of acceptance. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out, her hand hovering uncertainly in the air between them. I don't understand. Why are you dressed like this? Christie's shoulders sagged, the weight of her mother's confusion heavy on her heart. It's not a dress-up game, Mom. This is who I am. Her mother's hand fell to her side, her face contorting with confusion and pain. But you're my son! Christie flinched, her carefully constructed walls threatening to crumble. I was your son, but I'm your daughter now. This is my true self. A pained expression crossed her mother's face, and she shook her head, as if trying to clear it of confusion. I don't understand. How can this be your true self? You were born a boy. Christie squared her shoulders, finding strength in the knowing that she was finally being true to herself. Gender isn't just about what's between your legs, Mom. It's about how you feel inside. I've always felt like a girl, even if I didn't know how to express it." Her mother's eyes filled with fresh tears, and she took a step back, as if trying to distance herself from the truth of Christie's words. I can't process this. Your father and we don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Christie replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil she felt inside. "I just wanted you to know the real me. I'm still the same person I've always been, just a different gender." A distant, hurt look crossed her mother's face, and she shook her head, turning away. "I need a moment. Please, come through to the living room." Christie followed her mother, her heart heavy as she imagined the conversation her parents must be having. The silence stretched uncomfortably as she waited, her eyes drifting to the family photos on the walls, wondering if she would ever truly belong in this family again. The sound of approaching footsteps broke the quiet, and her father appeared in the doorway, his face pale and his eyes red-rimmed. He cleared his throat, his eyes flicking between Christie and her mother.
We just need some time, Chris,"
he said, his voice hoarse.
"This is a lot to take in."
Christie's heart sank, but she nodded, understanding the request even as it pained her.
"Of course. I love you both."
Her father's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed, but he remained silent, stepping back and closing the door gently behind her. As Christie made her way back down the path, a sense of loss washed over her. She knew her parents needed time, but the pain of their reaction was no less acute. She understood their confusion, having lived it herself for so long. But now, she felt more alone than ever. As she reached the gate, she paused, her shoulders shaking with the weight of unshed tears. "Hey, it's gonna be okay." The soft, reassuring voice made Christie turn. She found Leah standing on the sidewalk, her eyes filled with concern and her hand outstretched. Christie took it, allowing herself to be pulled into a hug. She let the tears fall, her body shaking with the release of pent-up emotion. "I know it hurts," Leah murmured, stroking Christie's hair gently. "But they'll come around. It just takes time." The next week, a soft glow of candlelight illuminated Christie's face as she sat at the bar, a glass of wine swirling in her hand. The warm, intimate atmosphere of the restaurant provided a welcome distraction from the events of the past week. She had spent the days since seeing her parents analyzing their every reaction, their every word. "You okay, babe?" Leah's voice cut through Christie's reverie, concerned emerald eyes searching her face. Christie offered a small smile. "I'm getting there. It's a lot to process, you know?" Leah nodded, her curl resting her chin on her hand as she gazed at Christie. "I can't even imagine, but we're here for you, remember?" "I know," Christie replied, her voice thick with gratitude. "It means the world to have you guys." Their conversation paused as the waiter approached, setting down their appetizers with a flourish. As he retreated, Christie's eyes drifted across the restaurant, taking in the other diners. Her gaze landed on a familiar face, and she did a double take. "Isn't that—" Leah followed her gaze, her eyes widening. "Your parents?" "Yeah, I think it is." Christie's heart began to pound, her mind racing as she processed this unexpected turn of events. "What are they doing here?" Leah's brow furrowed. "Maybe it's a sign. You know, them being here. Maybe you should go over. Say hi." Christie shook her head, her stomach flipping with nervousness. "I don't know. I mean, they asked for space. I don't want to push things." "They're your parents, Christie," Leah said firmly. "You have every right to be here, and they need to accept that. Go on, I dare you." Christie's pulse quickened as she weighed her options. Finally, she squared her shoulders and rose from her seat. "Fine. I'll go say hi. Wish me luck." Leah grinned. "You don't need luck. You are who you are, and they need to deal with it." Christie took a steadying breath and made her way across the restaurant, her eyes fixed on her parents' table. As she drew closer, she noticed the tense set of their shoulders, their eyes darting anxiously around the room. It was clear they had spotted her too, their gazes flicking back to her as she approached. "Hi," Christie said, her voice wavering slightly as she reached their table. "Fancy meeting you here?" Her parents' faces were a picture of conflicting emotions: surprise, uncertainty, and a hint of guilt.
Christie,
Her father said, his voice hoarse. We didn't expect to see you here." "I know," Christie replied, her confidence growing as she met their gaze. "I was actually daring myself to come over and say hi. Guess I got lucky." An awkward silence descended, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Her mother was the first to speak, her voice tremulous. "How have you been, dear?" Christie forced a small smile. "I'm good, thanks. How about you guys?" Her father cleared his throat, avoiding her eyes. "We're managing. It's been a lot to take in." Christie's imperfect brows furrowed, hurt washing over her. "I know. I'm sorry if I shocked you. It wasn't my intention." Her mother reached out, her hand hovering in the air as if searching for the right place to land. "No, we're sorry. We don't want to upset you further." Christie's shoulders relaxed slightly, a warmth spreading through her at their tentative words. "You're not upsetting me. I understand this is hard for you." Her father's eyes met hers, a flicker of something resembling acceptance shining through. "We're trying, Christie. Please believe that." Christie held his gaze, hope blooming in her chest. "I do, and I appreciate it. I really do." A tentative smile crossed her mother's face, and she patted the chair beside her. Would you like to join us, dear? We'd like to get to know you better." Christie's breath caught in her throat, the invitation catching her off guard. She glanced back at Leah, who offered a subtle thumbs up and a beaming smile. "Okay," Christie said, her voice steady despite the turmoil of emotions she felt. "I'd like that." As she took a seat, her heart swelled with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. She knew there was a long road ahead, but in that moment, she allowed herself to hope that her parents were taking the first steps towards acceptance. And as the wine flowed and conversation began to flow more freely, Christie allowed herself to relax, the weight of her parents' potential acceptance settling comfortably on her shoulders. As the evening wore on, the wine continued to flow, and the conversation began to take on a more relaxed, open tone. Christie found herself laughing at her father's jokes, the tension that had been so palpable at the beginning of the night slowly dissipating. Her mother leaned in, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol. "You know, Christie, I have to say, you look beautiful. Truly." Christie's heart swelled at the compliment, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "Thank you, Mom. That means so much to me." Her father nodded, his own eyes suspiciously misty.
Your mother's right. You're stunning, kiddo. I'm sorry if we made you feel otherwise.
Christie reached out, grasping her father's hand. "It's okay, Dad. I know this isn't easy for you, but I'm still me, you know? I'm still your child." Her mother's hand joined theirs, squeezing gently. "Of course you are, dear, and we love you, no matter what." The words, so simple yet so profound, broke the dam inside Christie, and tears began to stream down her face. She had waited so long to hear those words, to feel the unconditional love and acceptance of her parents. "I love you too," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. I was so scared that you couldn't. Her father shook his head, his own tears now falling freely. We were scared too, Christie. Scared of losing you, of not understanding. But we could never stop loving you. Never. Christie's heart felt like it might burst, the weight of years of fear and uncertainty lifting from her shoulders. She looked around the table, taking in the faces of her parents, so familiar yet so new in their acceptance. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din of the restaurant. Thank you for trying, for being here. Her mother smiled, her eyes shining with love and pride. We'll always be here, Christie. We might not always get it right, but we'll always try.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!